Once again, back is the incredible Charles Hamilton, aka C. Hamilton, aka the talented Mr. Hamilton, aka Junior. Just having fun with life, living it to the fullest.
Today's topic is a tragic tale of a rapper rejected by the mainstream because of his struggles with mental health and addiction. Charles Hamilton is a rapper that was on the rise between 2008 and 2009, and he made waves for his thought-provoking raps and personal story, which are honestly reminiscent of J.Cole, and sometimes even better. He signed to an independent label and released a series of mixtapes which found him in the lap of Interscope Records, with a $1 million distribution deal and the world in his hands. As if to emphasize his potential, he landed on the cover of XXL as part of their freshman 2009 class and released a string of critically acclaimed mixtapes to gear up for his debut around 2009. Then it all came crashing down. So the question is, what happened to Charles Hamilton? Why did his career decline? And what is he up to right now? Let's find out. What up guys, Ali here and welcome to Ali Talks Music. Add me on Instagram at Ali Talks Music as well. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now let's get into the video. Charles Hamilton was born around 1987, November 10th in Cleveland, Ohio. From a young age, music played a very important role in his life as his mother was an entertainment journalist and would often take him with her to events as a baby. She also made sure that he always had access to musical instruments, leaving different kinds of them in the basement of their home. Despite the variety on offer, Charles naturally gravitated towards the keyboard, initially playing the rhythm of songs he heard, but as he got older, he got better at identifying notes. He was self-taught in all of his instruments, and as he got older, he added the bass and lead guitar, drums, and harmonica to his musical arsenal. At the age of 5, he and his mother relocated to Harlem, where he began playing piano at the local church. His third cousin was a popular MC called MC Light. And according to her, Charles' talent blossomed when he was about 9 to 12 years old. By the time he was in high school, he was participating in rap battles in the cafeteria. Unfortunately, despite all the talent that Charles had and the momentum he was getting, he quickly found himself involved in the wrong kind of things and eventually doing drugs at only 16 years old. This included a 2-week heroin binge and led him down a path that saw him homeless at around 18 years old. It was like a healthy escape, ironically enough. Once I tried heroin a few times, I saw how I could easily get caught up in that. It got to a point when I was denying reality. For 2 whole years, he remained homeless, living life like a nomad and sleeping on friends' couches, the train, and his high school gym. It's a period of his life that he doesn't usually talk about, but his later single My Wonderful Pink Polo was inspired by his favorite clothing item at the time. That's all I used to have was a pink polo, my jeans, and my sneakers. I used to huddle myself under my polo with a big coat on the train. Despite his struggles, Charles always maintained that he was going to become something big, and despite being homeless, he kept working at his dream.
I'm always in the studio. So if I decide I'm gonna be in the studio from Monday until Monday, I'm gonna be in the studio Monday until Monday. I don't get out at all. All I do is music.
Around 2005, when Charles Hamilton was 18 and first wound up being homeless, a man named Howard J. Burke founded the label Demevalist Music Group. Burke signed Hamilton to the label, and it's here where Charles recorded a lot of his earlier work in a studio located within a high school. Later, Hamilton was promoted to be the president of the label. The Lab FDA studio means so much to me because when I literally didn't have anywhere else to go in the world, I can just go into my beloved alma mater and purge myself creatively. Now that the foundation has been laid, let's talk about the rise of Charles Hamilton. Charles met his future manager, Leroy Benrose, when Benrose had an internship at TVT Publishing somewhere between 2006 and 2008. Charles reached out to Leroy on Facebook and offered to assist in an event that Benrose was organizing. Although Leroy didn't take him up on his offer, he came across Charles's music 1 week later and decided to give it a chance. Impressed by what he heard, Leroy reached out to Charles, and when they linked up, he became increasingly passionate about Charles's music. After this, Leroy began helping Charles. He put him on showcases, burnt his music to CDs, and emailed his demos. He even asked his mother to allow Charles to stay with them when Charles was homeless. Eventually, Charles chose Leroy as his manager, and a unique and skilled partnership was formed. Leroy introduced Charles to everyone at TVT and managed to broker a meeting between him and the man that would eventually become his lawyer, Theo Seldemeyer, a man who was repped for the likes of Eminem and 50 Cent. Before they could register what was happening, the duo were flown out to meet Eminem, Jimmy Iovine, and Pharrell Williams. They then met with the presidents of every other major label. Meanwhile, around 2008, Charles dropped his debut mixtape Crash Landed, and around the same time, a video of him holding his own in a freestyle battle with Kanye West in the game went viral.
Hey yo, you know what I do, man. The more wet, the drink's hot. I spit like my man, he can be hot in his pink socks. I'm hot as that. I'm the man that nigga need an answer. Fuck with me, man. Kanye's, yo, cancer.
A week later, he dropped his second mixtape Outside Looking, and just over 2 weeks after that, around August of 2008, he announced that he was officially signed to Interscope Records.
Why every CD gotta have an intro?
Now later in the month, he announced that he would be releasing an 8-part mixtape series collectively known as the Hamiltonization Process. All of the mixtapes would be produced and written by him, while being hosted by DJ Ski.
Cause in his prime, it is why you let your spirit run free.
The series would lead up to the release of his debut album, and several of the mixtape covers were inspired by the covers of some of the greatest rappers of all time, like Nas's Illmatic. Hamilton was on a roll, and he dropped about 8 mixtapes around December of 2008. He also dropped mixtapes with members of his label, and his offerings quickly earned Charles a cult following and generated a lot of buzz in the industry. And then around 2009, he appeared on the cover of XXL's freshman class alongside rappers like Wale, B.O.B., Ace Hood, and Kid Cudi.
Blowing smoke from my mouth, bandana on my eyes, but you know what I'm about.
Unfortunately though, despite the massive success that Charles was experiencing, it wasn't without its drawbacks. He dropped his debut single Brooklyn Girls on November 2008, and even though the song is an underrated classic, it wasn't much of a chart success. Now, even though Charles was not too fond of the single, the label insisted that it appears on his debut album, and that's something that Charles was not too pleased with. So, when Interscope refused to budge and insisted that this song appears on his debut album, Charles took matters into his own hands, independently dropping the album on DMG and not including the single. It was dropped 1 day before the Broken Pink Lava Lamp in December of 2008 and contained no new material. The majority of the songs were recorded when Hamilton was homeless, and they became cult classics. Another highlight of 2008 was his beef with Soulja Boy. In the interview, Charles spoke about the fact that people were comparing him to Soulja Boy, especially since they both came up using the internet, and in the interview, Charles appeared to be throwing shade at Soulja. "I'm not trying to play Soulja, but chill. It's because of Soulja that my day-to-day, the way I live, the Sonic the Hedgehog shit that's dead real to me is considered a joke." Now, when Soulja Boy heard the interview, he was not too impressed with Charles, and he dropped a surprise video that went viral. Got a couple cartoon characters, got my name in their mouth. The boy about to start crying in the interview. This just not goes out to Charles Hamilton. The Sonic Man. That's not him. This goes out to all the rappers out there, man. I'd rather take the positive route and not get into beef. It's not my fault that whatever you got going on ain't going right. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. You feel me? Grab the magic marker, X out the Sonic, and you might just wanna fuck with Mario.
Nobody know that nigga. The motherfuckers who do know him, they don't know him by no song. They know him because he got punched in the face by a girl.
Don't go starting shit.
I ain't starting nothing. What you talking about, man? We on Ustream, man. Fuck Charles Hamilton.
Oh, man, some people talking.
Man, come on, man. You act like that nigga got an album coming out or something.
Blackberry, though.
Hey, y'all, put me on Worldstar Hip Hop. Fuck Charles Hamilton.
In response, Charles took to his blog and responded to Soulja Boy. And in the blog, he said that his comments were not meant to be perceived as beef. He posted 2 blog posts about it, and here's a highlight reel of what he said. I was called the new Soulja Boy. You don't think that would piss you off if you were nothing like Soulja Boy? I wasn't trying to diss him, I was talking aggressively out of frustration. My whole fan base are saying to murder the kid on a track. The Hamilton administration says, play it to my favor. The hood says, leave him alone. He's just a kid. The haters are starting campaigns against me. I guess to vote me out the industry. To the thirsty ass bloggers, this is not beef. He would even tell you that. He ain't built to have beef. Soulja Boy is gonna be on the cover of XXL supposedly in the next month. Has an album dropping December 16, whose lyrical capabilities are that of a BlackBerry without a battery, SIM card, or buttons to push. And I totally respect his money-making hustle. So in other words, Charles was saying that he respects Soulja Boy, but at the same time it seems like he's saying that Soulja Boy is not very lyrical.
Why the fuck would I even want to talk about Soulja without selling out a crossover?
So from 2009 onwards, Charles dropped a lot of mixtapes. For example, he dropped the best of the Hamiltonization process in January. In February, he dropped, well, isn't this awkward? Then he dropped My Brain Is Alive, and he just kept going. Clearly, he was following the 50 Cent and Wayne approach, flood the market with as much music as possible and hope for the best. But eventually, things began going left for Charles Hamilton. Despite his undeniable skill and growing cult-like fan base, Charles Hamilton was still an undiagnosed bipolar with a serious drug problem. Remember that at the time he was not even 22 years old, and just over a year ago, he was homeless. While dropping this much music, and for those of you that are keeping count, that's about 21 mixtapes in 11 months. It was a recipe for burnout for even the healthiest person. For Charles, it all became too much. His behavior began to be even more erratic than before, and his decisions became irrational to the public. And at this point, not even he knew that he had a disorder. In fact, his fans began to understand his erratic behavior when he would blog endlessly about Rihanna. Also his Isn't This Awkward mixtape was an entire mixtape dedicated to an imaginary relationship with Rihanna. Aside from his random beefing, sometimes with his own label mates, a video of him being punched by his girlfriend soon went viral. In the video, Charles is with his girlfriend Brianna in the streets, who just so happens to be Mary J. Blige's stepdaughter. It was an impromptu video interview, and the duo were going back and forth playfully at first, before Brianna decided to initiate a rap battle. At first, the battle was very playful, until Charles dropped this bar.
Okay, call me irresponsible and immature, but you're beautiful. What the hell else would I hit it for? Now, I could say that I hit it raw, but that would mean that you would have to get in a bar, or I just not need to go there. That's no fair. There's no squares in this circle, so why would you go, oh yeah, you're here in front? Oh.
And that's when she decked him straight in the face. So the video went viral, and this happened just months after Chris Brown hit Rihanna. It was very bad publicity to have. Then, a few weeks later, the couple released an apology video in which Hamilton said, I apologize honestly for putting some things out there that shouldn't have been out there. I understand it. It was the heat of the moment, and I didn't get the chance to really talk to you about it. I just wanted to tell you I apologize because I know what I shouldn't have said. Brianna also apologized for what she said and what she did. And honestly, it seems like Charles Hamilton handled the situation pretty well because despite being hit, he didn't lay any hands on Brianna. But back to the story at hand. Now, Charles's debut album was supposed to come out around June of 2009, which would have been less than a month after the controversial incident. It was supposed to be called The Perfect Life, and he even dropped the Perfect Life EP as promotion for the project. But even this was not without controversy. When Hamilton dropped the cover art for the project, it listed the late great Jay Dilla as executive producer for the project. So eventually people thought that Charles was just using Jay Dilla's name for publicity. So eventually this caused a massive controversy, and eventually Charles had to legally remove Jay Dilla's name from the project. The album kept getting pushed back, and after months of speculation, it was never released. And by September 19th of 2009, Charles Hamilton was dropped from Interscope. Now, in a short amount of time, Charles racked up a lot of beef. He got into it with 3 other rappers in 2009, including St. Louis, Black Spade, his fellow 2009 freshman classmate Wale, and Rhymefest. Let's begin with Black Spade. This one was super short and involved a beat that Hamilton allegedly plagiarized from Spade, which garnered attention around 2009. The feud began after Spade heard Hamilton perform a song called Shining, which sampled the Frankie Beverly and Maze song of the same title.
Can't you see it shining? Can't you see it shining? Oh.
Black then listened more carefully and decided that the track was way too similar to a beat that he had made a few years prior and posted on MySpace. Spade then approached Charles and complimented the beat, asking where he had found it. Charles then said he produced the beat himself using Pro Tools. Spade then felt like Charles was lying and that Charles actually stole the beat from his MySpace.
You know what I'm saying? Just to go back some, I thought the song was dope. You know what I'm saying? I didn't confront him. I was laid back and humble. I didn't make a big deal of it, but it was until he said he produced it, it kind of got to me. It's just, I mean,
Shining, shining, shining.
that right there.
Can't you see it shining? Oh.
That's me on the trigger of this guitar trigger, like it's got effects.
The feud didn't really escalate beyond words, but here's what each rapper had to say about the situation. I heard the Frankie Beverly sample and I was like, man, what if the actual beat come on and it's mine? Then it actually was mine. So I went over and I'm like, yo, this shit is fresh. I'm just curious, how'd you get it? Because I produced it. He said, no, I produced it with some other guy. The lie is what rubbed me the wrong way. At the same time, I still love the song. I think the dude does some decent music. Meanwhile, Charles continued to defend his honor, posting comments to maintain that the song is originally his, with any similarity being a coincidence. When trying to contact Charles Hamilton for his side of the story, an auto response was issued which read, "The last thing I want Starchase's supporters to think is that I've totally cut them off. I just want to protect myself a little better since the whole CH stole my beat bullshit. So I'm not accepting music/beat submissions until further notice. I still do respond to email, so you're gonna see an auto response first, then maybe an email back from me if the time permits. No one is going Hollywood, and even if I was, shouldn't you be proud of me? I've been Harlem this whole time. LOL, holla back. Before anyone even starts, that doesn't mean I went Hollywood." Now from this interaction, I've surmised 2 things. Firstly, they both sampled the same song. And secondly, rappers like to cause problems for each other. Now the second feud we're gonna talk about also began around April of 2009. This one was between Charles Hamilton and Wale. In a video, Wale was captured going on about how everyone was his nigga. But as soon as he got to Hamilton, his tune changed.
Ace Hood, that's my nigga. Charles Hamilton, that's not my nigga. Any real nigga don't run behind your back and say some bullshit. Especially if he know you gonna check him and not check him on a record. It's okay, we all young rappers growing up.
Now, Charles didn't really take much offense to this, and when he was asked by fans how he felt about it on his blog, he said the following: "I'm not his nigga, and he didn't diss me. Besides, I think this is the show he was telling me about. Or was it the show where in a freestyle he said, 'Fuck Charles Hamilton'? I don't know / care. If it's an issue, I'm sure as vocal as Wale is, we'll hear about it. I mean, other rappers did entire interviews thoroughly explaining their issue with me. Then again, they got ignored too. Damn, when I go fishing for a shark, I end up with tadpoles at the end of my fishing rod. Shucks. Oh well, until the next time I speak to Wale, this gets filed under the shrugging shoulders." Now this is kind of where the feud fizzled out. The duo have continued to trade passive-aggressive shots over social media over the years, but it has never come to anything serious. It's just some very weird energy between these two. No diddy. The last beef we're gonna talk about in 2009 was Charles Hamilton versus Rhymefest. Now this one is probably the most hip-hop related beef, as there were actually some diss tracks that got dropped. It all began when Hamilton captured the senior rapper's attention after name-dropping him as one of his rap battle victims. "You don't understand. Sonic means fast. How fast? I'll beat your ass. Motherfucker, lean back. He's that cat. Nigga, I'm the best." Next, Serious Jones. First was Rhymefest. These old-ass niggas wanna battle the kid. Now after hearing what Charles had to say, Rhymefest got in the booth and dropped a diss track of his own. This one was called Supersonic, a track that targeted Charles's affinity with the Blue Hedgehog.
Sorry, Charlie, beat me hardly.
Eminem, I lost to him and I guess I'm him again. Except I'm Charles Hamilton again.
Now just like his previous feuds, this one led nowhere. There was no response track, and as always, Charles had bigger things to worry about. This brings us to September of 2009, just over a year after he first got signed, believe it or not. 5 days after being dropped from Interscope, Charles dropped The Perfect Life digitally, and it was leaked on various websites. Back at square one, Charles returned to the mixtape circle, dropping Normalcy in December of 2009. Going into 2010, he dropped another 26 new mixtapes. So even though Charles was out of a deal, this didn't slow him down very much, as he kept dropping music consistently.
When I was in the mainstream, everybody was thinking, oh, Charles is making the street hop. I was making neo soul, and Jimmy Iovine told me to make folk type music. Jimmy Iovine said he wanted the young voice for the young people. Where I was going musically was very dark. Let me.
It's gonna take too long. Give it to him. No, fuck it. Give it to him.
In my arm, I hand carved Sega. Okay, my belief is carved into my arm. Further on my arm, I carved TWA, which stands for Tarot, Wicca, and Alchemy. Okay, I'm not Mr. Sunshine. Jimmy Iovine wanted me to be a happier version of myself. And where we disagree creatively is, I'm lying to my listener if I give them positive messages, because I don't see anything. I'm not positive. Like, I'm not.
So in 2010, he dropped a couple of mixtapes, but the one that stood out was TAFIETU. This mixtape was essentially supposed to be his debut album on Interscope, but it was shelved due to the label's dislike of the tracks. Now on a sadder note, 2010 was also the year in which Charles's bipolar disorder became too much to bear. Being dropped from Interscope sent him into a paranoid, depressed, and confused state. He later revealed that he locked himself in his house with the lights out and a turntable turning with no record on it. He even tried to overdose on lithium. Charles's mother was his saving grace. She found out that he was living in an abandoned building in Staten Island and telling friends that he was going to jump off Macomb's Dam Bridge in Harlem. After talking to his mother, he decided to check himself into a psychiatric hospital for his peace of mind. Around July of 2010, he signed himself into New York Presbyterian Mental Hospital. So after being checked in, he did an interview via telephone to share his experiences. All I wanted to do and still want to do is make music. It's got to the point where I started talking in rhymes all the time, even in just regular conversations, and music just became me. So I thought it would be a good idea if I checked into the hospital just to get my mind right. My stay here is like identical to my stay in the industry. As far as being the new guy in here, having to deal with politics and people trying to control you. The critics would have to be the doctors and the rounds. So you can say this is like an experiment to see if the industry is really like an asylum or if I was the one bugging. Some say the industry is like high school, but it's just like a mental hospital. Charles was discharged about a month later in August of 2010 and was seen leaving the hospital in a wheelchair. According to him, the reason why he was in a wheelchair was because he was struggling with sharp pains in his legs, which made him feel like he was about to collapse. Despite having limited mobility, he wanted to preserve it to stand in the recording booth. According to Billboard, he was institutionalized in a series of New York area hospitals where he was misdiagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Thus, around December of 2010, he was released from another institution. He then climbed onto a bus headed to Los Angeles, hoping to give his career another kickstart. And on the way, he made a spontaneous decision to meet up with his estranged father. This led to the infamous situation where he punched a cop. Hamilton had just crashed his girlfriend's father's car, which he had taken without permission. Although unharmed, he was clearly still suffering from some kind of mental break, and he wandered over to Gund area where he began to play what he described as imaginary basketball with exiting Cavalier fans. He later recalled the situation. This cop walks over and was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Basketball." He puts his arms out to guard me, so I crossed him and he slipped. His partner came over like, "What's going on?" He grabbed my arm and I punched him. He was then charged with felony assault of a police officer, posted $25,000 bail, and spent the next 8 months between jails and mental health facilities. During that time, doctors finally managed to work out that he was suffering from bipolar disorder. So, after the diagnosis, the charge was reduced to a misdemeanor and he was released. Charles then moved in with his mother and then once again refocused on his career. What's really amazing is that even while he was struggling with everything on his plate in 2011, Charles still managed to put out about 17 more mixtapes. Then, in 2012, he dropped 57 mixtapes. This included Ill Doesn't Mean Classic, which was initially announced as an independent album featuring the Eminem-produced single I Don't Care.
Got class so you can't dismiss me. All you can do is just sit and be pissed. And I don't care, I don't care.
That same year, he was involved in a bizarre and somewhat confusing one-sided feud with J.Cole. In March of 2012, Charles dropped a diss track aimed at J.Cole, which came completely out of nowhere in the track Hamilton Raps. I remember when I met you, you was dissing Jay. Shit bothered me anyway. It's not that I didn't like him, I just heard rumors. And I heard you was my junior, throwing up the rock sign. I assumed that you knew what it meant. Apparently you didn't. Nigga, you was fishing, barely was living. And I'm the one who put you in your new position. Just remember, nigga. So later in the song he implies that Cole never wrote any of his original rhymes and backtracked on his previous statements that Cole was one of the best MCs of all time.
You had a song a while ago that seemed like it was a J. Cole diss.
Okay.
Now, what was the story behind that?
Yet another topic I don't want to get into. I was just venting, you know what I mean? Like I misunderstood something he said in an interview and I just went off, you know. There's no malice, no love lost, no love gained. But, you know, he's a dope MC. He does what he has to do. He's selling records, you know? So can't really say anything there. You know, it wasn't the strongest diss because I named it J.Cole diss thinking that he would respond. Like, okay, Charles Hamilton diss, but it was a weak diss. So, you know, I just said what was real. I wasn't trying to punchline, jab, kill the nigga. I just said certain facts. So
Throwing up the rock sign, I assume that you knew what it meant. Apparently you didn't, nigga, you was fishing.
What do you think Cole did? Cole didn't respond and Hamilton was left looking crazy. So then in 2013, Charles dropped about 24 new mixtapes, and then around 2014, Charles announced via his blog that he had started working on his debut album. By 2015, he had returned to social media, reactivating his Twitter account and starting an Instagram page. It seemed like the rapper was finally starting to come right after his mental health issues. In interviews, he continued to display nervous tics, including fleeting eye contact and knee bouncing, as well as talking about conspiracy theories, human shapeshifters, aliens, and the time he met Sonic the Hedgehog. But overall, he seemed to be doing alright. And then things got better for Charles. Around February of 2015, it was confirmed that he was once again a signed artist, penning a deal first with Turn First Records and a second deal with Republic Records. The deal with Turn First was very special and geared towards helping Charles recover. Turn First laid out a recovery plan that included psychiatric and medical treatment, a strict adherence to his medication schedule, and ensuring that he always had a network of friends and family for support. By this point around 2015, the plan was taking effect quite well. His single New York Raining, which featured Rita Ora, was dropped around March of 2015 and became his first single released since 2010's Paperboy. The single was mostly successful in the UK and it did alright in the US. New York Raining also formed part of the soundtrack for the first season of Empire and also saw Charles cameo in episode 12 of season 1. So in 2015, Charles went on to drop more mixtapes, and then in 2016 he finally dropped his second album. It was called Hamilton Charles. The album went more or less unnoticed and missed the charts entirely, but it was critically well received. After this, Charles slipped off the radar. In 2016, he appeared in a 50-minute documentary about himself. In 2017, he didn't drop much music. And in 2018, he was involved in yet another completely bizarre headline after he attempted to rob someone who was trying to pay him for a feature. The artist, who goes by the handle @ForeverWorld, said the following: "To make it clear for anyone who was wondering, I drove to Charles's house for a recording session for an upcoming project of mine and to meet a musician that I've been a fan of for years. His intentions were to rob my fiancée and I. Things didn't go according to his plans. Not to mention he approached my fiancée in an aggressive manner for simply saying, 'What's your problem, dude?' My presence and my fiancée's peace backed him down. He had a couple of goons circling my car too. He's also extremely psychotic." Now normally I would say that these people were just looking for clout, but there was actually a video of the interaction that circled the internet for a while. Now the following year, around 2019, Charles dropped his first live action music video since New York Raining, titled Ralph Nader. It wasn't a massive success.
I don't give a fuck about what people say. Neither should you.
Thereafter, he went quiet for about 2 years. He dropped an EP around 2021, and then around 2022, he dropped another album called Hypergoth. Now, Charles's most recent stint in the headlines came around January of 2022 when he decided to give Doja Cat some unwarranted advice. He tweeted the following: "Doja, you gotta chill. The whole world is watching, and yes, judging you. Time to grow up. I know, sucks, but yeah." Also, Doja Cat is talking about being on 9th beats, meaning she wants to be taken serious as a spitter. I'm just saying she should take herself more seriously. She, like I said, is already rocking the world. But before Doja Cat could respond, Charles was bombarded with fans of the cat who tore him a new one in their responses to his tweets. It got so bad that he was forced to tweet again in an effort to backtrack. I wasn't hating on Doja Cat, I'm just asking her to take herself serious. She's already one of the elite females in music. I don't want to hear her ridiculed for being silly, like I was at one point. Y'all can chill out now. Now eventually Doja Cat came around and had a response of her own. She said, "Bro, I thought you were Anthony Hamilton. I was about to tell my whole family. I was so excited. You that one dude that was like, yabba dabba dabba Brooklyn girls. Bro, I feel so fucking dumb." Imagine if it was Anthony Hamilton though. Now it's unclear what prompted Hamilton's random, possibly well-meaning tweet, but either way, he fell right back off the radar after this. I mean, he's still a very active musician and performer, even if he doesn't quite have the audience of his youth. On Spotify, he has about 60,000 monthly listeners, and his most listened to songs are New York Raining, Conversations with God, Brooklyn Girls, Down the Line, and Shout Out.
I was more personal with my Star Chasers. I love each and every one of them individually and as a collective. But I was more personal. I shared a lot of personal information because I found that when I felt my most alone, I realized I wasn't alone. So I would document all the things that were going through my mind and in my heart at my lowest point, and just to see if anybody out there would kind of reach out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you're going to ask this, but I don't want to say I regret embodying Sonic as myself, but I realized that Sonic was a trigger point for depression for me because I was introduced to Sonic through trauma. So the things that may traumatize somebody, if you wear it as a badge of honor, it does come back and haunt you. But I see I've helped many lives, so I really don't regret it. But, you know, I would always take trauma and turn it into something for other people. You know what I'm saying? Like some form of entertainment. I might not be, you know, Farnsworth Bentley entertaining, but I do entertain with my music and my stage show. How I am in real life is how I am in music.
Who to you is like the biggest blog era woulda, coulda, what if?
Charles Hamilton, by far.
Oh my God, me too.
That's it for me, it's your boy Ali. What happened to Charles Hamilton in your opinion? Let me know down below. Yeah, What Happened 2 video dropping soon. Also add me on Instagram at Ali Talks Music. Till next time, peace.
Perfect.